Your neighbors won't starve politely. The second the power goes out, the countdown begins, and by day 3, you are no longer living in a friendly neighborhood. You're living inside a pressure cooker. During the 2021 Texas blackout, emergency reports showed that over 30% of theft and break-ins weren't done by strangers. They were done by people within the same community, the ones who knew exactly which houses had supplies. FEMA's disaster crime analysis confirms it. Extended outages trigger up to a 340% spike in property crime within the first 5 days, and the most common targets are homes that look too prepared. Because here's the truth nobody says out loud. When the lights stay off long enough, your biggest threat isn't some gang from across town. It's the person 3 doors down who's been watching your routine for years. And in a real blackout, no police, no stores, no working phones. The difference between surviving and becoming a target comes down to one thing. Can you stay invisible while everyone else is panicking? So these are the 10 ways to stay completely off your neighbor's radar when the grid goes dark, before desperation starts knocking. Number 10, the sound discipline rule that keeps your house from becoming a beacon. Here's the mistake almost nobody talks about, but it gets people targeted faster than light ever will. Noise. During a blackout, sound becomes the new electricity. When everything goes quiet, no TVs, no air conditioners, no traffic hum, no refrigerators, even the smallest noise turns into a flare in the dark. A slammed car door, a power tool, a radio, even loud talking carries way farther than normal. Acoustic engineers have confirmed that in low-noise environments, human voices can carry up to 300 feet farther than during normal urban sound conditions. Translation: in a blackout, your neighbor doesn't just hear you, they hear everything. And that matters, because sound tells a story. It tells people you're active, you're comfortable, you're organized, maybe even stocked. FEMA's urban disaster behavior reviews show that once outages pass the 48 to 72-hour mark, surveillance becomes informal, but constant neighbors listen for clues: cooking, movement, supplies. And in the 2005 Northeast grid failure follow-ups, police noted that homes with unusual audible activity were significantly more likely to be approached, questioned, or later burglarized. So what's the move? You apply sound discipline, a principle ripped straight from military blackout protocols. That means you stop broadcasting your life through noise. No loud meal prep at night. No hammering boards. No clanking cookware in visible hours. You pad doors. You place rugs down hallways. You avoid windows when speaking. People don't realize that desperation turns neighbors into human radar. They're scanning for who's doing better. A quiet house looks struggling. A noisy one looks supplied. And here's what most don't know. Criminals during blackouts don't always start with forced entry. They start with recon. A house with sound becomes a confirmed occupied resource target. Silence creates ambiguity. And ambiguity is protection. You don't need to look powerful. You need to look like nothing is happening. In a blackout, the safest home is the one that feels empty, cold, and forgotten, even when it isn't. Number 9. The trash signature mistake that exposes stockpiles. Without you realizing. Let me hit you with something most preppers completely overlook. Your garbage will betray you. In normal life, nobody cares what's in your trash. But in a blackout, trash becomes intelligence. It's evidence. It's a supply report sitting at the curb. During extended outages, waste becomes one of the first things communities stop collecting. That means your neighbors see what you discard, and what you throw away tells them what you have. Empty tuna cans, packaging from freeze-dried meals, battery wrappers, medical supplies, even propane canisters. These are the modern version of leaving your inventory list outside. After Hurricane Katrina, multiple security reports documented that opportunistic theft wasn't random. It was often based on visible household resource indicators, including trash piles. And in Puerto Rico after Maria, relief teams recorded that neighborhoods with unmanaged refuse became hotspots for both disease and crime because trash signaled who still had consumables. Here's the psychological reality. When scarcity hits, people start comparing. If your neighbor hasn't eaten warm food in 3 days and they see a pile of empty soup cans behind your fence, it triggers resentment instantly. Sociologists call this resource visibility escalation. Once someone believes you have more than them, they justify taking, and you don't even have to brag. Your trash does it for you. The solution is what intelligence officers call signature reduction. You destroy packaging. You burn paper materials safely. You store refuse inside sealed bins away from view. You never discard in predictable patterns. You mix waste with neutral debris. You compost discreetly. Some serious blackout preppers even maintain blackout trash bags containing only low-value common waste to match the neighborhood baseline. It sounds extreme until you realize theft isn't about morality in week 2. It's about survival math. In extended outages, neighbors become analysts. They notice who cooks, who charges devices, who consumes protein. Trash is one of the loudest signals you can leak. Staying off the radar isn't just what you hide inside, it's what you accidentally advertise outside. Number 8. The window behavior trap that turns observers into threats. Most people think staying hidden means turning off lights. Wrong. The real giveaway in a blackout is window behavior, because humans are wired to watch windows when the world goes dark. During the 1977 New York blackout, police reports described entire apartment blocks where residents openly monitored each other's movement through silhouettes, flashlight sweeps, and shadows behind curtains. People don't just look for light, they look for life. If your curtains shift constantly, if someone is walking back and forth with a flashlight, if shadows move in a way that suggests activity, your home becomes interesting. And in blackout psychology, interesting equals remembered. There's an unsettling term used in disaster sociology: visibility anchoring. Once someone notices your house doing something different, they mentally bookmark it. That bookmark can become a target days later. During blackouts longer than 5 days, criminologists have found that crimes increasingly become familiar location-based, meaning people steal from places they've already observed. So what's the tactic? You implement what World War II blackout wardens called static presence. That means, from the street, your house looks inert. Curtains stay fixed. No flashlight wandering rooms. No silhouettes near windows. You live deeper inside, away from glass. You use red light headlamps pointed down. You block reflective surfaces. You avoid cooking near windows where steam or scent trails outward. And here's the part most people don't know. Even in total darkness, human eyes detect movement extremely well. Your neighbor might not see what you have, but they'll absolutely see that you're active, organized, still functioning. The goal is to look like everyone else. Exhausted, dark, motionless, because stillness communicates scarcity. Motion communicates capability. And capability during desperation creates attention. You don't want attention. You want forgettability. In blackout survival, the safest house is the one nobody thinks about twice. Number 7. The information vacuum rule that prevents you from becoming the block's supply answer. Here's where things get dangerous in a way most people don't anticipate. In a blackout, people don't just panic. They search for leadership. They search for the prepared one. And the moment your neighbors suspect you know more, have more, or plan more, you become a gravitational center for need, and need turns into demand fast. Researchers studying disaster group behavior found that when systems collapse, communities subconsciously create informal supply hierarchies within the first 96 hours. Translation: people start identifying who has food, who has batteries, who has medical gear. And once you're placed in that category, you're never removed. This is why staying off your neighbor's radar isn't only physical, it's informational. You must obey the information vacuum rule. You do not become the neighborhood expert. You do not give detailed advice. You do not mention what you stored. You don't tell stories about your generator, your filtration system, your stockpile. Because information spreads faster than crime. FEMA's social breakdown modeling shows that rumor networks intensify dramatically after day 3, and resource rumors become one of the strongest predictors of targeted theft. The rule is simple. You stay vague. You stay humble. You act unsure. You ask questions instead of answering them. You let others talk. You never correct someone too confidently. Why? Because competence becomes suspicious. The moment someone thinks, "How does he know that?" your house becomes mentally upgraded from normal neighbor to potential supply node. And supply nodes get visited. First politely, then repeatedly, then aggressively. The smartest blackout survivors are not the loudest, not the most helpful, not the most knowledgeable in public. They become socially invisible. They blend into the confusion. They appear just as lost, just as limited, just as strained. Because in an information-starved environment, the person who seems most prepared becomes the first person everyone remembers when hunger starts talking louder than friendship. Number 7 isn't the last, but it's the foundation. Control what people know about you or they will write their own story, and you won't like the ending. Number 6. The smell discipline strategy nobody thinks about until it's too late. Let me tell you something that sounds almost ridiculous until you realize it's one of the biggest mistakes people make in a prolonged blackout. Your food smells will expose you. In a powerless neighborhood, scent becomes the new spotlight. When everyone's refrigerators are dead, when most households are eating cold crackers or nothing at all, the smell of hot rice, frying meat, coffee, soup, or even candles becomes a broadcast signal that you are still functioning. And it's not just theory after Hurricane Sandy. Community reports show that tension and resource suspicion spiked sharply around homes where neighbors detected cooking activity. Because smell triggers hunger faster than sight, triggers envy. The human brain reacts to food scent at a primitive level. It increases cortisol, it increases aggression, and it increases fixation. In disaster psychology, that's called olfactory provocation. And it matters because people don't just get curious, they get emotionally activated. During the siege conditions documented in Bosnia in the 1990s, residents reported that cooking smells were one of the most common causes of confrontations between neighbors because scent meant someone had fuel, someone had food, someone had reserves. And here's the part modern Americans don't understand. In blackout environments, scent travels much farther than normal because there's less competing pollution, less wind disruption from HVAC systems, and more still air at night. A single pot of soup can create a detectable scent radius of hundreds of feet. So what do smart survivors do? They implement smell discipline the same way militaries do. That means cooking only during daylight hours when activity is normal, using low-odor meals like rice, oats, lentils, and avoiding frying or meat early on. It means venting through interior filters, not open windows. It means storing trash sealed immediately so packaging odors don't leak. Some high-level preppers even use alcohol stoves indoors, under ventilation blankets specifically to minimize scent trails. Smell is not comfort, it's intelligence leakage. And in a blackout, intelligence leakage gets remembered. You want your house to smell like nothing. Because the hungrier the block gets, the more dangerous something smells good over there becomes. Number 5. The water camouflage rule that prevents the most dangerous attention of all. If you think food is the first thing people fight over in a blackout, you're wrong. The real tipping point is always water. Food takes days to matter. Water takes hours. Once taps go dry, once pressure drops, once bottled water disappears from stores, the neighborhood enters a completely different psychological phase, and that phase is when neighbors stop being neighbors. And here's the part most people don't know. During blackouts lasting more than 4 to 5 days, municipal water failure becomes statistically likely because pumping stations require power. FEMA infrastructure assessments confirm that water systems are one of the first cascading failures in long outages. So if you still have clean water, filtered, stored, gravity-fed, you have the most valuable resource on the street. And you cannot let anyone know, because water creates dependency instantly. If one desperate household learns you can purify water, they won't ask once. They'll ask again tomorrow. Then they'll bring someone else. Then your house becomes the water stop. And in collapse history, water stops become conflict points. In the 2010 Haiti earthquake aftermath, aid workers reported that localized water sources were among the most violent flashpoints in urban neighborhoods, even when other supplies existed. The tactic here is water camouflage. You never carry water visibly. You don't haul jugs across the yard. You don't rinse items outside. You don't let kids play with water. You don't create the visual impression of abundance. You draw water at odd hours, quietly. You store containers out of sight. You use secondary vessels that look mundane, not survivalist. And here's something most people never hear. You should avoid pouring wastewater outside, because even gray water signals consumption. In grid-down scenarios, even the sound of running water can create suspicion. High-level blackout planners often recommend dividing water supplies into decoy-accessible amounts and hidden reserves. So even if pressured, you can truthfully say, "We're almost out too." Because the moment someone believes you have deep water storage, you've created a long-term threat. Water is life, and life makes people irrational. The goal is not just having water. The goal is making sure nobody thinks you do. Number 4. The routine disruption trick. That stops neighbors from mapping your life. This one is pure next level, and almost nobody understands it until they get burned. During a blackout, people start tracking patterns. They don't even mean to. Humans naturally map behavior when stressed. If you step outside every morning at 8, if you check your car at the same hour, if you appear at the window every night, if you run your generator on schedule, you are building a predictable survival map for everyone watching. And predictable means vulnerable. In criminology, one of the strongest predictors of targeting is routine visibility. Studies on burglary patterns show that criminals, and yes, desperate neighbors count, prefer targets with consistent habits because consistency reduces risk. In a blackout where boredom is high and information is scarce, neighbors become observers by default. They notice who comes out, who doesn't, who has movement, who stays silent. And once desperation deepens, that observational memory becomes actionable. That's why you need routine disruption. You break patterns intentionally. You don't go out at the same time daily. You don't reveal when you cook, charge devices, or sleep. You randomize activity. You become unreadable. During the 1977 blackout in New York, residents later reported that break-ins often happened shortly after thieves had observed a household's rhythm when they left, when they returned, when lights briefly appeared. A house with a predictable routine becomes easy. A house with chaotic, irregular signals becomes uncertain. And uncertainty is a shield. The best blackout survivors don't just hide supplies, they hide schedules. They move like fog. They appear inconsistent. They never let the neighborhood learn their tempo. Because in prolonged collapse, people don't attack what they don't understand. They attack what they can predict. Number 3. The light signature control. Trick that stops silent surveillance. Most people think they understand darkness in a blackout. They think it's just, turn the lights off. No. In reality, what exposes you isn't obvious lighting, it's what professionals call light signature leakage. Tiny flashes, phone screens, a lantern glow bouncing off the ceiling, a crack in the curtain, a flashlight sweeping past a window for half a second. In normal life, none of that matters. But in a powerless neighborhood, your eyes adjust, and people become hawks. After just 1 hour without artificial light, the human eye increases sensitivity dramatically, meaning even a dim LED can be seen from far outside. And in prolonged outages, neighbors aren't just casually noticing, they're silently cataloging. The problem is that light communicates wealth. It communicates capability. It communicates batteries, fuel, organization, comfort. And comfort becomes suspicious fast. During the 2003 Northeast blackout, reports from urban neighborhoods showed that households who had visible interior lighting even briefly became magnets for knocking, requests, and later theft attempts, because light is proof of resources. And here's the part most people don't realize. Light doesn't just attract criminals. It attracts the desperate, curious neighbor, which is often worse, because desperation spreads socially. One person sees you have light, tells 2 others tell 5, and suddenly you're a supply rumor. The tactic here is full-spectrum light discipline. That means red light only inside, no white lanterns near windows, blackout curtains taped at the edges, towels blocking door cracks, and absolutely zero backlighting silhouettes. Experienced grid-down planners even recommend building a core living cell, one interior room where all activity happens, so nothing leaks outward. You want your home to look dead, even while you function. Because in blackout sociology, the homes that look most alive become the homes people mentally circle. Light is not safety. Light is advertising. And in a neighborhood running out of patience, the brightest house becomes the first house tested. Number 2, the controlled help rule that prevents you from becoming the neighborhood lifeline. Let's talk about the most dangerous trap of all, being too helpful. This sounds harsh, but it's reality. In the first 24 hours of a blackout, people bond, they share, they joke. It feels like community. But by day 4, the emotional weather changes. Fear turns into need turns into entitlement, and entitlement turns into aggression. Disaster researchers call this the solidarity decay curve. Communities cooperate early, but as deprivation stretches on, cooperation collapses into competition. And the people who suffer most are the ones who become known as the resource households. The family who has extra water, the guy who has batteries, the house that always seems calm. That household becomes the neighborhood lifeline, and lifelines get pulled until they snap. The controlled help rule is simple. You never become a supply station. You never give repeatedly. You never solve problems publicly. You provide minimal, symbolic assistance, early just enough to look normal, then you close the door quietly. Because giving once creates expectation, giving twice creates dependency, and dependency becomes anger when you eventually stop. After Hurricane Katrina, neighborhood accounts repeatedly described how certain prepared families were pressured, surrounded, and even threatened once word spread they had more than others. Not because they were evil, because desperation rewrites morality. The controlled help rule means you help in ways that don't reveal capacity, advice instead of items, small tokens instead of bulk supplies, and always with the appearance of scarcity. You want to look like you're barely hanging on too, because the moment people believe you have deep reserves, you've painted a target that doesn't wash off. Survival isn't just stockpiling. It's refusing to become the neighborhood's emergency provider. Number 1. The invisibility pact that makes your home psychologically untargetable. This is the highest level truth of blackout survival, and it's uncomfortable. You do not survive long-term outages by being the strongest house. You survive by being the least interesting house. Number 1 is what I call the invisibility pact, not an agreement you sign, but a discipline you live by. In every historical blackout, from New York 1977 to Puerto Rico post-Maria, to modern rolling grid failures, the households that made it through untouched weren't the loudest, the most armed, or the most prepared in public. They were the ones nobody thought about. They blended. They vanished socially. They created what military strategists call low observable presence. No noise, no light leaks, no obvious cooking smells, no predictable routines, no public competence, no visible abundance. They looked like everyone else or worse. And that invisibility creates the ultimate defense. Psychological dismissal. In chaos, people triage targets. They don't waste energy on uncertainty. They pursue the obvious. The house with the generator hum. The house with the cooked meals. The house where someone always has answers. But the quiet, cold, dead-looking house? That becomes background. Forgotten. Skipped. In siege environments, survival often belongs to those who become boring. You do not want to win the neighborhood hierarchy. You want to disappear inside it. That's the invisibility pact. You commit to never standing out, even when you could. You outlast not through domination, but through obscurity. Because when the blackout becomes a true breakdown, the most valuable asset isn't food, fuel, or weapons. It's being overlooked. The grid goes down and society becomes a pressure cooker. And the families who survive are the ones who never gave anyone a reason to focus on them in the first place.